Look at this.
Can we have a peek?
This is a really simple recipe.
So, Mike, we've been having a lot of fun reading about you, sussing out exactly what it is that you've done. I'm particularly intrigued by the fact that you actually studied film. I mean, would you consider yourself an accidental chef in the way you got your first job at the Four Seasons in Palm Beach?
Yeah, my passion was like, I want to tell stories, and I love drawing storyboards, and I wanted to write stories and like watch those stories become real on film. I always felt that film was a medium where you could kind of create anything, right? It's very magical kind of storytelling in terms of cutting and editing and what you could create. So after I finished some school in Toronto, I decided that I needed to come back to the US and work. And I was, my early 20s, and I love eating and I love cooking. So let me just I was a little bit naive. I decided that I thought I was going to cook part-time and work on my writing and my directing and my filmmaking on the other part-time. And that obviously would never happen in the culinary industry. So when I started working in kitchens professionally, I just kind of got bit by the bug and really loved it.
So would you consider yourself, in terms of cuisine, in terms of cooking, in terms of being a chef, to be an autodidact, completely self-taught?
Yeah, I mean, I enrolled in culinary school, but I dropped out pretty much immediately. I was working full time, and like if you're working full time in the industry as a chef, trade, I mean, it's really brutal. And I also realized within maybe the first 5 hours of that what I was learning in the field was, exponentially faster and a lot more access to information. So I was like, well, why am I paying to go to school when I'm learning everything I need to learn and I already have a job? And I think there's a lot of misconceptions often when you're, behind in a classroom, behind a desk, versus what actually happens when you get in the industry. And you say, hey, you know what? I just spent all that time training and learning and spending money on this, and I realized I don't even want to do this. So yeah, it was kind of a good caveat. My creative process has always drawn towards art, fashion, architecture. I get a lot of inspiration from texture and textiles and colors and design. And, buildings can impress me, parks and gardens. And so sometimes that creative process usually starts with something completely esoteric, not even necessarily involved with the culinary industry or food. And then I start to reverse engineer it to determine, well, what would that look like? Like sometimes I look at a piece of marble countertop and I'm like, well, what if we could make that edible? Or what if, another thing for me is working with people that are not in the industry, which is very fascinating creative process. So I do storyboard dishes in the sense that I draw them out, like physically on pen and paper. Habitually, I used to just draw ideas out on like napkins and then shove them in my pocket. And then like at the end of the day, I would like pull out all these napkins out of my pocket, unfold them, and be like, oh yeah, that was a good idea. And when I was working professionally in the industry, even in Chicago throughout my life, I've done lots of tastings, lots of tasting menus. I just felt a huge change, and this was happening for years. And I was winding down my career at Alinea, and I was asking myself, I was like, what am I going to do when I leave here? And I'd always had plans to open up my own restaurant. I knew in my heart that I didn't want to just walk out the back door of what I was doing right into the back door of another project if it didn't really speak to me in a way that I needed to speak to me. And after 20 something years of cooking professionally, I realized that I needed an answer, and I didn't want to just cook anymore unless I was cooking for a reason. And I just had this aha moment at home cooking, making this Chinese medicinal soup that I make once or twice a week. I even have some right here. Look at this.
Yeah.
So this is a really simple recipe. It's just getting started. So in
There's a whole
here,
chicken in there.
it's a whole chicken here. Let me tell you how I do it real quick.
Yeah.
This wasn't planned, by the way, but
Yeah, that's perfect.
So I put ginger, garlic, onion, whole chicken, some bone broth, ginseng, Chinese red dates, cordyceps, goji berries, apple cider vinegar to season, pink salt to season. I usually finish it with leafy greens. I just put, it's basically a one pot cookery. And what's funny about it is it's probably one of the most delicious recipes that I have. And it's the exact opposite of everything I've ever done, culinary wise, in the sense that it's actually will make you live longer and it'll actually make your brain function more. But all I do is put everything in a pot, put it on very low heat and walk away for like 4 and 5 hours and it's done. But it starts with either a bone broth or a vegetable broth. And I fortify it with, you know, as many like medicinal plants and herbs and macronutrients, micronutrients, phytonutrients, as much as I can pack in there. And what's also awesome about that soup is I can still do all my Michelin techniques and I can use all my experience to make the food elegant, beautiful, great knife cuts, great technique. I can introduce all the creativity that I've always been doing with floating food and everything else, but just using what's growing out of the planet, supporting local farmers, supporting the ecosystem. You know, the number one cause of climate change is, you know, big agriculture and systemic farming and, you know, all the harmful chemicals that we're putting into the soil. So, you know, for me, it was like, all right, now I have a reason and a mission to not only continue to eat the way that I enjoy eating, but give back to the community, give back to the planet, because that's what I was missing. You know, I think after, you know, a couple decades of cooking professionally, I just kind of lost the desire to show off with a tasting menu that I just thought would blow people away because it's just a bunch of cool ingredients. So Superfood Concepts is the name of my umbrella consulting company. I specifically created that company, you know, 3 years ago, and that was a company that I had no idea where it was going to go. You know, I said, look, I'm not ready to work for somebody else. I'm going to be my own boss. So that's done. I'm not ready to walk in the back door of my own restaurant until I figure out what I want to do. I've been cooking for 20 plus years. I needed a break, but I don't want to stop working. So I'm going to create this company and hopefully start to interact with other cultures and other industries and other artists. And hopefully I can create some partnerships that allow some new direction. So that's why I created that. And lo and behold, I got lucky. I started to get some interest from international industries and partnerships, and just let that happen, unfold naturally. And it's been great. I've been working kind of as a consultant freelancer on a bunch of projects, some in the US and a lot in, you know, Dubai and China, Mexico, just kind of all over. So it's been good. I'm creating one of those drinks for Mercedes-Benz EQ. I'm working on some of those drinks for like a private restaurant concept in the Middle East. And then I'm working on my own brick and mortar in Los Angeles, and that'll also be hinged around food as medicine. Honestly, I was literally ready to walk away from the restaurant industry, not because I didn't like it, just because I didn't know what else I could offer it. You know, I was kind of dealing with those inner demons. It's like, what am I doing this for? Like, it used to be about, well, let me blow people's minds. Let me create things that nobody's ever seen before. And I love the element of theater, and I love creating an experience. So I didn't want to abandon that, but, you know, at the same time, I was like, I just don't want to cook just to cook anymore. So allowing me to do this, food as medicine, and, you know, one of the parts of the concept would be kind of like this really geeky, like omakase style counter that will really allow people who are fascinated and want a 3 Michelin experience and want to really embrace what food as medicine is, allows me to really showcase even more esoteric and cool ingredients. Then there's going to be a more casual aspect to the venue. So for me, it's like this, and then I want to incorporate local artists and the art community. I mean, for me, I feel like there needs to be a shift in restaurant design and restaurant experience as a whole. You know, it's how that experience looks and feels, and how we expect to welcome guests is a huge part. And I feel like not incorporating, you know, the art community would be a mistake. So this is kind of like an art project meets food project.